Hello fellow World of Warcraft players, welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today it's about the launch of patch 12.0.7 because once again it was anything but smooth. What's important here is that this mainly concerns Tuesday because, as you surely know, the Americans get to start on Tuesday, they're always a day ahead, while we start from Wednesday. And once again, there were quite a few bugs. It's also important to say that in this video, I'm not trying to bash Blizzard or anything like that, but I think it's a point that needs to be addressed, especially since after patch 12.0.5, which was very buggy, they said, hey, this won't happen again, we'll do better. And yes, just 3 or 4 hours after the patch was released, the forums and Reddit were already flooded again with bugs and error reports. Yes, at this point we're just listing the errors for context. I already said something about this, but I'll try not to be too harsh about it now. I've shared my opinion. I don't think this should happen. Bugs, totally understandable. They can always happen, but especially after the last patch, I would have done everything to avoid it this time. We'll go through it. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe if you want to support me, and with that, let's get started. You can also let me know how patch day went for you. Usually for me, it's actually pretty smooth, I have to say. So I don't even notice a lot of these things, but maybe that's because I'm playing the wrong content. The first report came from American players with this message here. Normally you always get this incompatible server message when a patch is being downloaded in the background, which is then on the live servers, but you haven't updated your launcher yet, because then it's incompatible with the game version. But here the problem was that a user downloaded the updates multiple times, uninstalled them again, reinstalled the game, and for several hours he kept getting the message incompatible. He then also asked in the forum and on Reddit what he could do, and the most common answer was simply no, that's most likely a bug in the game. If you've downloaded everything that's there, then it's not your fault. So here as well, a very, very strange bug that honestly I only had once. Back then, for me, it was because my launcher, for whatever reason, didn't start downloading a patch. In this case, though, he said he had downloaded and installed the latest patch. A hotfix didn't come out right after that, so that's a bit strange. So for that to happen, even when everything is downloaded and installed, yeah, I haven't heard of that happening very often. But as you can see, anything is possible. What came next was a bit more frustrating. Namely the Omnium Foliant. You can now play the quest line for it. At least you can do the first quest, and at one point you have to kill and loot a mob. What made the whole thing problematic was that this mob could only be tagged by a maximum of 5 players. And after that, kind of like in the old days, anyone who's been playing for a while knows it's not like today, where 20 people can hit a mob and everyone can loot it. It wasn't like that back then. Back then, sometimes they were even tagged individually and only one person could loot. And here it was the same, that the players gathered around this mob. And as you can see, a huge bottleneck formed because there were just so many players who needed this quest. But no one could loot the mob, or rather only one person at a time could. And that's how this scene came about. Blizzard became aware of the whole thing relatively quickly, let's put it that way. And they then released a hotfix or a message. Thanks for the reports. They have a fix on the way to resolve this tagging issue, this tagging problem. So it's fair to say many players reported it, but Blizzard also reacted relatively quickly. That's why, yeah, you could say the Americans are kind of bug testers for us in that regard. Because the European players usually shouldn't have noticed it. I don't know, I didn't play right from the morning. But when I tried it, everything was working again. So yeah, tough luck for the US Americans, but that's not all. We had even more bugs, and this time it's about the cooldown manager. They wrote, "We've identified an issue with the cooldown manager where certain buffs and debuffs aren't tracking properly for friendly players and on enemy player nameplates. We're working on fixing the issues and we'll update this thread after the fixes are live in the game." So in the end, this just affects the cooldown tracker. Where they said there were problems with tracking buffs and cooldowns, sometimes even on enemy nameplates. And here as well, that's an error that, yeah, it wasn't in the game before, but Blizzard introduced it now with the patch. I'll be honest, how should I put it? So even if the patches were tested, I can understand that some things slip through. Because first of all, there are never as many people on the PTR as there are on live. And especially when hundreds of thousands of players jump on the same content, there are so many people who might do things differently and try out dozens of different combinations. That's when you realize, okay, if this and that come together, then something happens, which is bad. And that's exactly what happened in this case. But Blizzard also responded pretty quickly here and said, yeah, we know about it and we're working on a fix. And let's see, yeah, if more comes up in the end. But as of now, they reacted pretty quickly at the beginning. They were made aware of the issues. I also have to say, it wasn't as much as with patch 12.0.5, but of course, it's a bit disappointing that it happened again right away. Well, what's your opinion on this whole story? Feel free to write it in the comments. Do you say, yeah, it can happen, it's not a big deal? Or do you say, that's really dumb after what happened last time? Let me know. And with that, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Have a good time and take care.